You finished as a civil engineer, so what happened then?
Well, the decision to go self-employed didn't happen at the time. If I just go back a few years, at the end of my PhD, I actually started to, I was reading personal development from the age of 18 years of age, and I picked up a book called Dianetics, which is, I think Ron Hubbard wrote the original book, and I don't know how I came across that, but at 18 years of age, I was reading personal development all the way through my degree and my PhD. I was actually going into libraries and reading, even at that young age, personal development books. But by the time I hit my career with a PhD in my hand, my lunch breaks were spent literally every break either listening to audio tapes, reading. We didn't have magazines like Best You in those days, so you had to go around and scrabble. What you produce is amazing. We didn't have that, so I had to go and find that from bookshops. And I realised, looking at people older than me, none of them were doing any sort of personal development whatsoever. The only development they were doing was career-based around engineering. But there was redundancies in the loom. I saw people being dragged up to the boardroom, being escorted off site, and then having to be brought back onto site after 10 years of working for the company and being removed with all they weren't allowed to go to their desks. And that, I got a wake-up call, and I really got my head down. I got involved with the network marketing business for a while, and although that business didn't take up for me personally, what I took from it was the personal development. I started attending seminars, and I realised very quickly I wasn't going to stay in this career. I wanted to get out. I wanted to be self-employed, as Robert Kiyosaki would say. I wanted to move from the E to the S quadrant. And that was my catapult. And I completely ignored the fact that all of the people that are older than me were saying, you're too young, you need to be at least 15, 20 years in the career, they're not going to take you seriously. I had one thing that other people didn't have. I had a passion for helping other people, and I had a PhD which was in the top probably 5 people in the world at what I knew. And that was niche enough for me to break into self-employment. I knew nothing about starting a business, but I had the passion to do it, and that was the most important thing for me at the time. And early 30s I was at the time.
I was actually going to discuss that with you, but that's the thing. The thing is that you look at all the university, kids coming out of university or even coming out of schools, and it's quite, it's quite concerning, kind of the limited skills they have when it comes down just to life skills, communication, language, And so what are your thoughts regarding, what could be done or what could be done better?
It's a great question. I think there needs to be part of the curriculum an element of personal development, personal evolution or personal growth, whatever you want to call it. It's a label that I know a lot of people struggle with. And I think because of the label of personal development, it doesn't necessarily get taken as seriously as it should be. If you said to somebody, learn calculus, they'd sit up. If you said to somebody, learn a language, when you say to somebody, learn personal skills like communication, reading people, understanding your beliefs, your values, understanding how to follow a purpose and to articulate a purpose onto paper and to goal set, the average teacher doesn't know how to do that. And I think what's happened is the academic world has been geared towards people getting into a job. It hasn't been geared towards getting them into developing skills to communicate at a higher level. So I think it needs to be part of the curriculum, and I believe that teachers should be taught it at teacher training schools, and whether they have to bring in people like myself, other speakers, to teach that, or whether they develop a curriculum for it. At the moment, I think most academic people are having to go out. Last year we probably had, through my Turning Point events, 6 or more teachers that were coming because they wanted to learn life skills to take back to their kids. Unfortunately, they're doing that now, actually, so we're getting more people coming through. But it needs to be introduced at that level.
What's your thoughts regarding entrepreneurship and going out there and making a difference, doing something?
Yeah, totally. It is almost, I would say, for the average person now, not even a choice. It's an obligation, because for 2 reasons. One is, I think if you're reading this or listening to the interview and you're looking at your future over the next 5 to 10 years, ask a simple question. Will my career provide me with the security that I want? Is my pension working for me? We've seen the collapse of some of the major organisations around the world, the banks, the pension system's failing people. It was set up to support the baby boomers. That whole system's collapsing around us. So, simple question. If you're in a career right now, you're not self-employed, you're not an entrepreneur by nature, will your career give you the security you want and your family? If you don't believe it will, then you have an obligation to do something. However, if you believe it may be there, but you've got a passion to follow, i.e. you've got an idea, a concept, a skill set, something like that, then go and pursue it. And the simple thing I get people to do when the first thing about setting up a business is I just get them to sit down and ask a simple question. What are you passionate about? What do you love to do? And also, what are your skills? And just to list them out. If you take anybody, it doesn't matter who, if we went out here and grabbed one person within 5 minutes walk from here, we could establish from that person what their core skills providing a solution to somebody's problem. The best entrepreneurs out there are the ones that identify an area where there's a problem in the marketplace and they provide a solution to that. I mean, Zig Ziglar's very famous for saying, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll receive what you want. And I think that's the true value of being an entrepreneur. And I think the one other thing to answer your question is, I don't think we're in a world now where it's about, okay, I'll give you something, you give me something back. It's about giving massive value, which I know you do through Best You magazine. It's about giving more than your readership, which is what you do, expect. It's about, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, giving more than your client expects so they want to come back to you. Anthony Robbins has a great phrase. He talks about creating raving fans. And that's what we need to do now, is as entrepreneurs be able to do that. And if anybody's listening to this or reading your magazine and is nervous about doing that, I would be more nervous about the consequences of not doing it. Because ultimately, if you're not in control of your financial future, somebody else must be, which is the beauty of being an entrepreneur. It could be just adding another £1,000, £2,000 a month as a part-time business. And once it starts to pick up speed, expanding that into something bigger. But have the courage to do it now, because the opportunities are out there. There's an absolutely huge opportunity while the industries are falling around us to get into the niche markets and be skilled in that area.
Sorry, when did you write Turning Point?
So I wrote the Turning Point in 2011.
Okay.
But the Turning Point refers back to major turning points in my life. So I explained to people that turning points happen to us, or we can consciously create a turning point. And the 2001-2002 experience for me was realising that if I could develop a property business, that gave me more control over my time, because ultimately residual income really just buys us time freedom. And I think for a lot of people, they're so tied into their career, their job. And I'm sure you have a lot of readers that are extremely professional in their nature, but they almost feel obligated to stay in that career. It gave me choices. And that's the one thing I didn't feel I'd had up to that, even though you might argue, well, you're a consultant, you're working for yourself. But if I stopped doing that, I lost the opportunity to be time free. So what this shift for me, this turning point, it allowed me to start to speak in different areas. So although I was speaking on property, I was finding I was speaking to an audience of 100, 200, 300 people. But actually, most of them were coming up and their challenges were with their personal development, not with the how to buy a property at a discount.
So limiting beliefs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was beliefs about money. It was beliefs about success. What are my family going to think? My friends are acting differently towards me because of my attitude towards my job, my career. But I was also finding people's values were out of alignment. They were working in a career which was not aligned with their values. So it was conflict of values alignment. And that was another thing that was coming up. So I found that I was introducing 30 to 40% of my education I was teaching on property ended up having to be personal development. Otherwise, people weren't making a shift. So that's when I started to introduce more of that into my speaking at a higher level.